Welcome back to the Snap. Michael Heaver here alongside my co-host Patrick O'Flynn, of course. And Patrick, our last episode before a huge set of elections this Thursday, of course, and some very, very interesting polling that backs up a lot of things we've been saying about what a dire state the Labour Party are in.
Yeah, this is the pre-election episode, so this is where we're calling it, as we have done throughout, as a crisis set of elections for the Labour Party and Keir Starmer, not for the Conservative Party and Boris Johnson. Now, there are a couple of national polls over the weekend which purported to show the support for the parties tightening up. But we've, as you say, overnight got three key polls from actually on the ground. One in the Hartlepool by-election, one in the Tees Valley mayoral race, and one in the West Midlands mayoral race, which all say that in those contests, in what were formerly regarded as bits of the red wall, in all those contests, the Conservatives are heading for a landslide win.
Yeah, and what's really interesting, Patrick, is that, if the Westminster gossip and tittle-tattle had real cut-through, as we were hearing, we wouldn't be seeing anything like these numbers for the Conservatives. I mean, if we just start off, for instance, in Hartlepool, the Conservative candidate on 50% versus Labour's candidate on 33%. And of course, it can't be overstated, really, Patrick, that Hartlepool is about as red a seat as they come. It's always been Labour. In fact, I was having a look the other day, and there was a Hartlepool by-election in 2004 where the Conservatives came fourth and got less than 10% of the vote. So it really does show you how big this would be if it was turned into a Conservative game.
Yeah, what we're seeing, as we've said from the start, is a long-term structural realignment of political support, particularly of working class and older, perhaps socially conservative-minded voters in town seats, often post-industrial towns, away from the Labour Party and into the arms of the Conservatives. And that's been going on for a while, but this shows, or will show, that what happened in December 2019 was not an aberration, was not uniquely linked to Jeremy Corbyn's Labour leadership or Boris Johnson's campaigning brilliance or whatever, or just a moment frozen in time to do with only Brexit. This is a long-term trend to the catastrophic disadvantage of the Labour Party. I don't see how Labour under Starmer or anyone else is going to turn that tide back. I don't think they can come back to patriotic, centre ground, normal voters, because 2/3 of the Labour Party's support is made up of the sort of metropolitan middle class liberal left with totally alien values, minority values. They own Labour now.
I mean, this is personal, and I've said it all the way through this, is we've seen some people jump up and down about, I think we even saw one front page about Boris being on the ropes not that long ago. I think Keir Starmer's leadership, if these numbers are anything like correct, I think Keir Starmer's leadership of the Labour Party is in major, major trouble, because this is personal. And this, beyond the voting intention, Patrick, this is the sort of collection of numbers that really caught my eye. Was it in the same poll? Again, this is in Hartlepool. This is in a constituency that has never elected a Conservative MP. When people in Hartlepool are asked, who do you prefer as Prime Minister, Boris Johnson or Keir Starmer? 56% of those in Hartlepool say Boris Johnson, Conservative Prime Minister. Only 19% back Keir Starmer. So effectively, you've got a Conservative Prime Minister with a 37-point poll lead over a Labour leader in a constituency that has never elected a Tory MP. It just doesn't get any more damning than that, I don't think, for Keir Starmer's leadership.
No, and particularly not after, 3 weeks now of remorseless media bombardment of Boris Johnson on personal issues. And let's be honest, some of it hasn't looked too clever from the Prime Minister. I'm one of those who don't think of him as a venal individual, but it would clearly help were he a bit more organised about certain matters in his life. So that's not been helpful for Boris Johnson, but setting it aside in the eyes of Hartlepool voters, for instance, setting it against Keir Starmer's track record, particularly as the man who tried to steal the Brexit votes of that town that voted 70% for Brexit. Starmer was the instigator of Labour deciding to break its pledge to honour the referendum result. He is the man who actually tried to steal the Brexit vote, and it's all very well him trying to pin everything on Jeremy Corbyn, but this problem goes deeper than that, and it goes to him. The voters of the red wall, what's now becoming the blue wall, they don't like him. They don't like what he stands for. They don't think he knows anything about their lives. And incidentally, they probably also noticed that he's turning out to be a terribly wooden campaigner with very lame lines, lame sound bites, ponderously delivered. Yeah, I think you're right. This is a big crisis for Starmer, but the structural problem means it would take a miracle worker to sort this out for the Labour Party.
And it goes beyond, of course, Patrick, this one constituency of Hartlepool. Opinion have Andy Street, the Conservative incumbent mayor of the West Midlands, winning by 17 points on first preference in the West Midlands. And another opinion poll for the Tees Valley mayoral race has Ben Hoochin, again, the incumbent Conservative mayor there, on course to win even bigger with 63% of first preferences. So this isn't just a matter of one constituency or one by-election. If the Conservatives were to win all three of these races, Patrick, I really think you're going to see some turmoil inside the Labour Party, who clearly will have gone backwards since the last general election.
Yeah, I think that's right. And they clearly seem to be on course to do that, to win all three of those contests. But I mean, looking at the West Midlands, West Midlands includes the second biggest city in the country, Birmingham, which is a massive Labour stronghold if you look at the parliamentary representation. But what's happened in the West Midlands as a whole is that the Black Country towns are looking across at Birmingham and seeing what the Labour Party stands for and not liking what they see at all, and have switched to the Conservatives in a massive way. So if Labour can't even be competitive across the West Midlands, in the 11th year of having a Conservative Prime Minister, and gets wiped out on the first ballot, it's an astonishing crisis. And it shows, that Labour will have these new heartlands, which are the big cities, Liverpool, Manchester, Birmingham, Bristol, obviously London, Leeds and Bradford to an extent. They'll have those really big cities, and they'll have the sort of she university cities, Oxford, Cambridge, Brighton, Exeter to an extent, places like that, but they'll have nothing else. And what goes on in these citadels for Labour is going to be putting off normal people in normal places all over the country. So I think even the political media, a lot of it shares the same ideas and outlooks as the modern Labour Party. It's going to have to confront the fact that we are seeing this long-term structural change. The Labour Party, I wouldn't say it's dying. It's not the death of the Labour Party, but I think it's the theft of the Labour Party. It's been stolen from its cradle, from where it was born, by a bunch of middle-class progressives.
Where are the safe Labour seats? They could all go. You could actually see an even bigger. I think we're on a trajectory at the moment to see an even bigger Conservative majority of the next general election.
I think that's the central assumption, that it's not going to be smaller. Other things being equal, the trend we're on, the Conservatives are going to win bigger. And if they were to win bigger in 2024, effectively that puts 2028 and 2029 outside the reach of a Labour Party or a successor left-wing party. So again, that means searching questions will have to be asked about what exactly is the point of the Labour Party. So I think Friday morning is going to be quite an exciting day for those of us who think that Labour is in effect a bed-blocking party. It can't beat the Conservatives on any sort of sensible centre-left agenda. I want to see successive patriotic parties with some left of centre opinions on things like economic policy, like the SDP, given room to flourish, and in the long time could be more credible opposition to the Tories, and because a series of walkovers isn't really in the interests of the British public, because I think we know from looking at it, the Tories do tend to get complacent and take people for granted if they have it too easy for too long.
And finally, Patrick, just to see what you think about this, I mean, what's the outlook, do you think, for the Liberal Democrats and Reform UK? I spoke to Richard Tice on my channel yesterday. In this poll, the Lib Dems of Hartlepool, this is, the Lib Dems and Reform UK both on 1%. Of course, we saw Reform UK, then the Brexit Party get over 10,000 votes last time in the constituency of Hartlepool. And it shouldn't be forgotten, by the way. I mean, in terms of the Liberal Democrats, this is a party that, again, going back a little while, but the 2004 Hartlepool by-election, the Lib Dems came second and got 34% of the vote. They're now on 1%. What do you make of that?
Well, I think what we're seeing in regards to Reform, which is obviously the successor of the Brexit Party, is the Brexit Party, like UKIP before it, perhaps serving as a bit of a gateway drug for long-term Labour voters to give up their habit before bouncing on to the Tories. It looks like the 10,000 Brexit Party votes that Richard Tice got himself is going to crash down to a vote in the hundreds rather than the thousands. The Liberal Democrats, I think, are just seen as indistinguishable from Labour, this metropolitan Lib left mush. Basically, they've got themselves a little bit of distinction on latterly opposing lockdown and wanting a quicker, restoration of civil liberties, but I don't think people really think their heart's in that. They think it's opportunistic. I don't really see a lot more point in the Liberal Democrats to what the point was behind Change UK, and we saw what happened to them.
Well, Patrick, look, these are, there'll be people commenting and watching this who say, look, it's only polls, and that's fair enough. We'll see, of course, if these are accurate or not. But if they are, it looks like it could be a pretty dramatic set of elections. And of course, we'll be back after that to really dig into the bones and survey the landscape after the election. Patrick, we'll talk again soon.
Yeah, can't wait.